So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome. My name is Kanisa Mabieka, and I am joined today by esteemed colleagues from Dodoma Lab, Gloriana, Winston Ojenge from ACT, Daisy Salifu from AI4FS, Adekemi Omotubora from EduAI, Eunice Akyereko from Rail, and Wambui Gachiengo from Villgro, Africa. All hubs and labs conducting work under the Innovation Challenge for gender inclusive AI research. Today, we will be hearing from these hubs and labs lessons from conducting responsive AI research. And I am so looking forward to hearing what you have to share. I would just like to ensure that we have a smooth participation. Just remind everyone to keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking, to feel comfortable to use our participants to raise your hand, use the raise hand icon, or to use the Q&A function to share your thoughts, questions that you might have for our panelists today. And if possible, to keep your cameras off as well if you're not speaking, just to ensure a smooth transition of the network. I will also ask our panelists who, when not speaking, to keep your cameras off, and only the panelists that are speaking to do so, so that we can have our focus on who's speaking. And yeah, so welcome, and looking forward for this conversation that we're going to have today. I would like to start by inviting Gloriana Monko from the Dodoma Lab to start sharing your experience. Please go ahead, Gloriana.
Thank you, Kanisa. I hope you can all see my screen. Oh, sorry.
Yes, perfectly.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Okay, so my name is Gloriana Monko. I'm here to represent AI4D Lab from Dodoma. And our project is working on addressing the systemic barrier and promoting inclusion in AI for research and development Tanzania. And I won't go to the introduction, so I will go quickly to the research that we are doing, so that I don't take too much of your time. I only have 7 minutes. So in addressing the systemic barrier and promoting the inclusion in AI, we decided to come up with a novel approach of training the STEM teachers in order to capacitate them with essential knowledge and practical abilities for them to be able to integrate gender perspective into their teaching. So we felt that this was the main aspect that we think it can actually transform the students' mind and also make the students get interested to learn the STEM subjects also and create interest in learning AI, because there is where they get to be introduced in the they get to be introduced in the subjects that they highly contribute in taking up computer related or technology related courses. So we decided to come up with a curriculum that is going to aid in capacity building. And this curriculum is integrating gender equality and inclusion in AI for STEM educators. And the main aspect that we have covered is the gender responsiveness, providing the AI fundamentals for the teachers, but also using the pedagogical approaches that can actually help teachers to transform their classes into a more dynamic classes instead of having just normal traditional classes. And we thought that it was important for the teachers to be able to be equipped with this necessary knowledge because they are the ones that are shaping educational landscape, and they will be the best people to mitigate those gender stereotypes that are existing in the educational environment, other than the people outside the learning space. So while developing the curriculum, we have addressed the issues of gender, the gender stereotypes, the biases that can come up with gender stereotypes that are existing in the community, but also we wanted them to understand why we want to integrate the gender in AI. Why is it important? Because we are in the technological era and we are developing the systems which we do not want them to perpetuate the same biases that are existing, which are already existing in the system, in the society. So we want to create the systems which are safe, which are more fair to the human. So we want the system to, we want the system not to bring harm, but rather to be more beneficial to the users. So we wanted them to understand that aspect so that they can start integrating this gender aspect in their teachings, and it can be part and parcel of their daily activities as they learn in the classrooms. So the lesson that we learned while developing the curriculum, we felt that it was important for us to understand the local context, because grounding the curriculum with the local context and the educational context should be, it could have made the curriculum more better. And we also felt that it was important to have an interdisciplinary collaboration, which could also enhance the curriculum quality. So, and we think that it is a fact that combating the stereotype requires an active strategies, it's not just a passive process. So it requires an active and deliberate strategies and intervention that can actually empower these students and educators to recognize and challenge those biases in themselves and also in others. So they need to own it. And also we feel like having a well-designed curriculum is not good enough if the teachers are not going to implement it effectively. So the teachers' training is key to curriculum success. And also we felt that this is an opportunity for us to address the digital divide because it's part of the solution itself, since that we are integrating AI in the curriculum, and the technology, the AI technology is new to many, and we felt that this is also highlighting the need to address the digital divide as well. And so we still do have some challenges that we're facing, which we feel like we still need to address them. And this is because of the time constraints, we were not able to engage a sufficient number of stakeholders while developing the curriculum, which we think it is an important aspect so that we can come up with a quality curriculum. And also, we felt like after training, it is good to have a post-training observation so that we can understand the mindset change in teachers. Have they really changed their ways of teaching in the classrooms? So since we do not have enough time regarding the, given the timeline of the project, so we may not be able to achieve it perfectly. So we could just have a post-training survey immediately after the training, but rather we could really have a better observation after that in their own classes. So those are the things that we felt that we should share with you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Gloriana, and thank you for being such a good timekeeper. You used exactly 7 minutes, so that was great.
Thank you.
It's so interesting what you're sharing, and something that occurred to me as you were talking, I was thinking the education system itself is a reproducer of power imbalances, biases, and stuff like that. And you also mentioned that one of the methodologies or approaches you were using was an alternative or transformative pedagogical approach. I wonder if
Yep.
you could tell us a little bit more about what that meant. How did you arrive at that idea of using an alternative pedagogical approach with the teachers, and what has changed? What is changing in, for example, the way things are taught or knowledge is transferred, um, and how that might be changing the way the contribution to reducing the digital divide or to learning about digital technology itself.
Okay. Well, so having a transformative learning approach or using transformative learning approach could change a lot. And it has been vividly, researched that it has a very positive impact in in students' learning, because most of the teaching methodologies that are currently used are more traditional. They are, student-centered. I would say they are teacher-based centered rather than learner-centered, because we do not take like our students as colleagues or part of the learning process. So mostly the students are the listeners and the teachers are the providers of the materials. So we want them to have more engaging classes, which can actually change the behavior of the students. They can actually bring this diversity in opinions and everything that they do in their learning space. So for instance, if these teachers are going back to their classes and introduce the transformative approaches like collaborations or presentation or inquiry, or maybe acquisition methodologies, or maybe reading skills, they will actually build up these students better, and they can actually bring the confidence in them rather than just listening in the classroom instead of being part of the learning process. So if these students will be able to collaborate in the class, they will be able to the teachers will be very gender responsive and do it intentionally. Like if the students need to form group discussions, they have to be gender, they have to consider the gender distribution within the class, the groups. And they also have to consider that all the students have, their opinion matters. So even the teacher, when they're teaching in the classes, they should know that they need to provide equal chances to the students so that they do not bring this gap that is already existing. So we feel like having those approaches, they will actually help a lot in changing the educational system.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gloriana. I really would like to see the results of how you test that assumption of how more participatory or transformative pedagogical approaches might enhance the diversity in the knowledge and of the students. Thank you so much, Gloriana. If you may please stop sharing your screen. And I would like to invite our participants, if you have questions for Gloriana, something you would like specifically to learn from the Dodoma Lab's experience, please write them in the Q&A, and at the end of the presentations, we will come back to them. I would like to invite Winston Ojenge from the African Center for Technology Studies. Winston, you have 5 to 7 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Anita. My name is Ojenge Winston. I'm a senior research fellow at the African Center for Technology Studies, which is based in Nairobi. I'm also the co-lead for a project that we have managed the last 36 months which is funded by Adjei and CEDA, which is giving scholarship for PhD and postdoc to faculty members of sub-Saharan African public universities. In the process of giving out the scholarships, we noted that these are technical AI and machine learning scholars with very little awareness of ethics of AI and gender equality and inclusivity issues. And so we decided to give them 3 short courses within the scholarship period. These courses were done by experts, global experts, and trying to give them knowledge and awareness about ethics of AI. But even at the end of the 3 courses, we realized that the level of awareness was still low. And we got an opportunity given to us by the Gender Consortium with some little funding to conduct a more invasive study, a more elaborate study, which was project-based. So in this project-based approach, we wanted to give them more awareness around the gender equality and inclusivity. And we then did this in such a way that they were relooking their studies, that's the AI and machine learning studies that they've been doing with their own supervisors, and relooking this through the lens of AI equality human rights toolbox, which is a toolbox developed by Women at the Table, part of the Gender Consortium. Over the last, we picked 15 teams, and over the last 6 months or so, we have seen very exciting results. Number one, as each team reviewed the studies they've been carrying together with their supervisors, they noticed so many breaches to ethics of AI or gender equality and inclusivity. Through the entire, cycle of research and development of AI, beginning with the research design, beginning with the interaction with the user community where data is coming from, to data collection itself, to data pre-processing, to predictive models development, and now even deployment. But now what is exciting is that they have, initial reports. We have draft reports. They're still doing their final reports. But this is very indicative of the fact that they are now currently heavily aware of some of these breaches. And we are hoping that these are things that they will accommodate and revise in subsequent studies. But another exciting development is that the Global Partnership for AI, which is it's basically a partnership of so many organizations in the space of AI coming together, have been doing a study, a project last year. Now this is the second phase, where they are all over the 5 continents. They are identifying teams and their solutions and trying to take these teams through an awareness campaign over ethics of AI. And they've been having mentors. And now our 15 research teams that have gone through our project are actually being recruited as mentors. And for us, this is extremely exciting. Thank you very much. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Winston, for sharing that, and such an initiative that also touches on such a big group of stakeholders that affect the development of AI systems, but also teaching, and now as mentors. I wonder if, Winston, you could tell us perhaps a story, something that is palpable about what emerged from those analysis with the human rights toolbox lenses, something that perhaps surprised you that you had not thought about as a computer scientist yourself, and as using those questions, that process, that method to look at of the systems in all of its phases. Something that's surprising, like, oh, I had never thought that this could be an issue at you became aware of it and started perhaps using it in your own work. Could you perhaps share that?
That is for starting. There are a lot of things, like you said, my background is really computer science, and my interests have been AI and machine learning. But since 2021, I began interacting with the ethics of AI, gender, equality, and inclusivity. And there were works of certain individuals that came out so strongly, highlighting or spotlighting the fact that technical AI and machine learning experts all over the world have no regard or awareness of ethics of AI, which is a very dangerous situation because we all know the potential risks of AI. But now, I'll give you an example. A lot of our scholars did not even bother to go down to the communities that they were building some of these solutions for, to get data, primary data from them. They depended on online data, which is non-contextual. I'm collecting data, for instance, in order to build a solution for a set of farmers in, say, Kenya, but then they don't bother to go collect data from these same farmers. So that it tells you that the solutions they'll be building cannot be responsive to the problems of these same farmers. So it highlighted the fact, and most of the teams are now aware that we really need to go down and collect data where the solutions are going to be used. Another very powerful thing is there are most of these solutions that were developed in the studies are going to be based on smartphones to give out services to community members, farmers, patients, etc. But they are giving these solutions not in vernacular, but in formal languages like in English and French. And some of these people are rural communities that have no understanding of these foreign languages. And that highlighted this to the study teams, that they have to totally look at the user community, the people that they're going to serve, that this AI is going to serve, and probably convert this into vernacular, convert this into basic fonts that majority of these same people have. But of more importance is developers of AI and machine learning and have always thought that when you bring in ethics, you're going to drag them back. You're restricting innovation. Yet it's coming out very clearly that ethics and gender equality and inclusivity is actually promoting business. Because some of these things that the toolbox is talking about are actually promoting the profit margin. They are promoting deployability and the reception by the user community of the AI solutions, which definitely is improving business.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Winston. I could already see some connections with Gloriana's experience around biases researchers might take by just not going to engage with who will be using the systems they are developing. Thank you so much. I would also like to invite anybody who has specific questions for Winston, who would like a little bit more details from the experience of that ACTS conducted, to please use the Q&A for that. Thank you, Winston. I would like now to invite Eunice Akyereko from RAIL, Responsible AI Artificial Lab, to please share your innovation challenge experience.
Thank you very much. Please, can you see my slide?
Yes, it's not on slideshow. If you would like to put it on slideshow, just to facilitate the visual.
Yes. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much once again. And I'm Eunice representing on behalf of REAL. And we are working on how to integrate AI in IPV solutions or interventions. And there's the outline of the presentation. And these are research questions. And just to pick one or two of them, the focus was to see how AI can efficiently work with human beings to provide solution for victims to improve their survival rate, and also to compare existing apps to identify its weakness, and also try and contextualize the solution so that it makes it more accessible and also relevant to the community. And based on the focus group discussions that we've had, we realized that the user needs are very crucial in coming up with more suitable interventions, and it will also increase its acceptability and usability since it's centered around their own needs. So among them is privacy issues. They raise tracking and feedback on cases. There was also language flexibility because we have different languages. The service providers have issue with data storage and then profiling, and also some people may not have the smartphones. So how do we make the app accessible for them? And some can also not type. So flexible reporting format for them to be able to report their issues. And based on the user needs, we came up with 2 apps, one for the user and then one for the service provider. So among the activities that we've done, these are some of the significance of our work. And because there are quite many, I will just pick 1 or 2 of them. This time around, we have a more user-friendly app for the reporting and also interaction between the service provider and the victim to improve their survival rate. We also have a means of feedback where the service providers will be able to follow up on the victim regularly, as is currently lacking in their service provision. And then we also have a more efficient way of protecting data privacy because of the the mechanism, the ethical mechanisms that we've put in the app. So these are a few of the significance that I've just enumerated. We have several activities and it can be looked at. And for the app development, we have a demo that will be able to show you how the flow chart is. We have 2 pathways if one wants to be anonymous in reporting. So this is more for the user. If, for instance, somebody sees a neighbor or somebody being victimized and they want to report the incident, as it is now, people are scared to report because the neighbor may notice them and later harm, or the offender may harm them or something like that. So they are unwilling to give evidence on incidents or accidents. So this anonymous version will help them to be able to report of an incident within their locality without being noticed. And the data protection will protect the person because he wouldn't have to go through the verification process where we will take the phone number and the email. So we have 2 pathways, as you can see on the flow chart, and it goes through down to the submission of the report. But because of time, we have the 2 demos where the user will be reporting, and then how the service providers will receive the reports from the users. I will just show just a short one It's about 3 minutes in total, which may take quite a lot of time. So I'll just give the initial for you to see the interface, just brief of the interface, then I can progress. So just give me a second whilst I show that. So this is the verification stage where the service provider is able to see the interface and then select all the cases under domestic violence, child abuse, child neglect, and all those, because each of the cases are saved in different folders so that it becomes easy for them to be able to assess those that are of urgency and address it. Things like child neglect are not that urgent as compared to abuse or threats. So that's why we have categorized the folder so that they will be able to select those that are of urgent and priority. So because of time, this is just a short demo, but it's available when you want to have a look at it. And currently we are piloting to get more feedback. So I think it will be a very good platform for us to share with you, for us to get inputs for it. So at the moment, because of time, I will switch over to the slides, please.
Thank you, Eunice.
So please, can you see my slide now?
No. I mean, we're still looking at the demo.
Okay, 1 second, please.
And you have a minute, Eunice, to finish your
Yes.
presentation. Okay, thank you.
Yes, definitely. So based on the feedback that we've had, we've been able to go through 3 manuscripts, one on review, and then one on the focus group, and then the third one will be on app piloting. Then we have the challenges. People are having issues accepting that IPV is prevalent and it's a crime and it needs to be reported. And also, we are having difficulty communicating to be able to give us updates on what was in existence. So our further work, we are looking into making the app accessible, because not all of them have iPhones or what do you call it, smartphones. So we need to provide an option for such people, and also how to regulate the media on how to deal with IPV cases, because now the way they are approaching it, almost every case is on air and is infringing on the privacy of the victims. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eunice. I understand this is such a hot issue. You had a lot to share. I noticed that your team has been looking at, I think some of the questions that people always have around IPV. IPV is intimate partner violence, for those who are not aware, which is the issue of privacy, data protection, anonymity. And the question I had for you is, how have you and your team considered the issue of protection if people have to download an app? I mean, if I don't know if anything has emerged for you in terms of safety in that sense, if it was better to have a web app where people just go online and use the app on in the web, or if it was better to download something on people's phones. But just looking at in terms of safety and anonymity, if that does not add even more to the violence that people might experience if the partner, for example, perpetrating the violence can see that they have the app in their phone. For example, just if you could briefly talk about those safety issues for a minute, please, Eunice.
Okay, yes, we know that once you download the app, your partner may see that maybe you have such app and you are reporting of incidents. So we are also working on getting the app hidden. So you can download the app and get it hidden on your phone so that in emergency, you can easily access it. And also we are working on, because we are looking at accessibility, how we can have some short code such that we work in conjunction with the telcos, so that in case of such an incident, if the person cannot hide it on his or her phone, he can kind of WhatsApp or what do you call it, text, use that. But we realize that the cost involved is quite a lot, because per each level, the telcos will charge. So it then restricts accessibility for those in the rural areas that we intend to make the app accessible. So these are some of the challenges that we are looking forward to addressing in the future research.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eunice. Very, very interesting issues. I would like to encourage everyone that might have questions or comments to share with Eunice to please also write them in the Q&A or keep them for when we open up for short debate. Thank you, Eunice. I would now like to invite Daisy Salifu, our colleague for AI for Agriculture and Food Systems, to share AI4FS's experience. Please go ahead, Daisy.
Thank you, Kanisa. We were looking at strengthening the capacity of women and marginalized communities in Africa's agriculture and food systems to harness the potentials of artificial intelligence technology. And this would like to achieve using the approach designed by inclusion, or what is also called user-led inclusive design. And so this study was piloted on 2 projects. These are projects of our network grantees, one in Uganda and another one in Nigeria. The one in Nigeria, they are looking at using AI to enhance the production, management, marketing of yellow pepper. And the one in Uganda was a scaling up project. So they're scaling up smartphone-based tools for early crop disease detection and monitoring for cassava. So given these 2 projects, we tried to pilot our study on this. And so what we did was to have community dialogue in these 2 countries, Uganda and Nigeria. So we had women and the marginalized communities assembled in the village, in the community, where we had this community dialogue where we were expecting them to be part of the design of the AI tools in these 2 sites, Nigeria and Uganda. So our aim was to hear and document their opinion so that they were part of the design of these AI tools. And so what we did was to ask for their 3 priority needs in the entire, for Uganda, for the entire cassava production, starting from land preparation until marketing. And the same for Nigeria. We also tried to have a conversation for them to give us their priority needs, because that would then form a basis for the design of the AI tool. And so in Uganda, they came up with 3 priority needs. They talked about soil and nutrient analysis. And then second was identification of diseases and pests, and their intervention and control. And the third one was the market pathways and management of farm prices. That was the order of priority. While in Nigeria, the priority was pest and disease detection. And next was the water management, looking at irrigation, automated irrigation in the yellow pepper production. And the third one was nutrient information, so that they're able to use application of fertilizer efficiently. Now, this is what we have learned out of our study. We saw a mismatch in Uganda because Uganda, we were piloting our approach on a scaling up project, something that we did not start with them. And in this scaling up project, they did not involve the users in the design of the AI tool that was for disease detection. And therefore, there was a mismatch. While the tool that has been developed is on disease and pest identification, the users, the marginalized and the women, identified their priority need as soil nutrient analysis. So we saw that mismatch. Whereas in Nigeria, there was no mismatch. The users, the participants, indicated that their priority need is pests and diseases. And indeed, that is what is being developed as an AI tool for pest and disease identification. So we are learning that chances are very high that you get a mismatch if you don't involve the users right at the beginning. So we are looking at user-led inclusive design so that these people, they would point out what they want to see, and they become part of the process in the entire design and in the entire, the entire process of developing the AI tool, right from the identification of the problem. Are we solving the right problem for the users as defined by the users and not by the designers or the experts? And another lesson that we learned is that this interaction, the co-development within the participants and the experts, as we are interacting and trying to look into the priority needs and the problems that AI would solve, you find there is that learning within themselves. And that is also an advantage because then within themselves, they learn from each other. The conversation itself, it's part of learning. And the conversation spills over to the use of smartphones because these AI tools would then be put in an app, and that conversation alone creates that learning from each other. And in addition, this process of interacting, having this community dialogue, it's also an empowerment on its own. And that is something that we think we cherish out of this process of design by inclusion. We also noted that the women and the marginalized, lack of their experience in AI technology is really just a consequence of lack of opportunity and not necessarily lack of skills to do so. And so we noticed the way they were so eager and they were so intelligent in putting out what needs to be done. And so we saw that as something that is really beneficial when we use design by inclusion approach. Overall, we noted that these participants, as we interact with them in the user-led, design by inclusion, they feel valued, they feel listened to, they feel respected. That you could tell from the enthusiasm in having the conversation with the facilitators and the rapporteurs who are recording the conversation. And on our part, we noticed that this promotes self-reflection. You reflect and see that indeed this is possible. It's possible that we carry along the women and marginalized as we design our AI tools, so that altogether, all of us can then benefit from the potentials of AI tools. I think I leave it there for now. Thank you, Kanisa.
Thank you so much, Daisy. As you were talking, I was thinking of Winston's lesson as well, that engaging the users makes the product, the deployability of the product easier. And it seems like you also learned important lessons about engaging the user. And I found very interesting that mismatch that you found and how it reflects clearly how the priorities may differ now between who's designing and who will use it. I wanted to ask you, Daisy, from what you've learned through this research and also the reflections you've made about by seeing this mismatch, is there anything that you would like to change in the way that you do research in order for this to be standard, this way of engaging, designing, designing by inclusion? Is there anything that you think would need to change in the way that you currently do research for that to be the standard?
Thank you, Kanisa. In fact, this is really something that I've noted that as experts in AI, we need to keep this conversation and this reality in us that design or user-led inclusive design would be much better than, let's say, designer-centric or user-centric. This would be recommended for anything that is any technology or innovation, because once you involve the users and they're part of the process, the adoption becomes almost obvious because they embrace it. You know, they're able to ask questions, they're able to lead this design into what they feel is the best for their use. And so I really would recommend this to innovations whose users need to be part of. And because then, I mean, if you design something because you are super and you forget about the users, a lot of them are there and forgiving. Once you exclude them, especially the marginalized, the women and marginalized communities, they are very unforgiving. You exclude them from the design, that's it. You cannot bring them back. So bring them right at the beginning, at looking at the problem itself and how you're going to design the innovation, and let them be carried along. And that would be more impactful than otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daisy, for sharing AI4FF's experience. I would now like to invite Adekemi Omotubora from Edu AI to share their experience. Kemi, please switch on your camera if you can hear us. Yeah, we can see the presentation. It's not on presentation mode yet. And if you may please switch on your camera as you present, Kemi.
You can see me and the presentation as well.
Yes.
Oh,
no,
is that the right view? I'm so sorry. Okay.
Perfect.
Can you see me and hear me now? I tried
Perfectly.
to start my timer to be on time. Okay, good afternoon. Kanisa, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Kemi Omotubora. I'm from the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, and I'm co-lead on the Hub for Responsible AI for Education Innovation Research Network in Africa. So Gender Innovation Challenge is on, we want to create a gender toolkit for inclusive AI in education. And our premise or hypothesis is that women experience privacy differently. So I just quickly highlight the problem, and the question and the methodology or approach that we're using. So we think, and based on the literature, that gender bias in AI manifests also in education. So the education sector is also replicating and reinforcing societal bias that can limit women's careers, it can limit their education and limit their choices in life. And there are also privacy risks. These are not immediately, we don't see it immediately as a women or a gender problem sometimes. But the use of AI can lead to, monitoring risk, surveillance risk. And for women, that can have a very chilling effect in the learning environment. So what is our question is, how can AI designers identify and address gender-related privacy risks or issues in education? That's a mouthful, and I'll come to it shortly. So our approach is to use a co-creation approach. Our methodology is to use a co-creation approach. We want to build an accessible gender toolkit for AI developers and policymakers. So, okay. Just to talk briefly about the challenges and the changes to our approach and the lessons that we learned in the process of building that toolkit. The first is that we found out that the concepts that we are trying to investigate, to build this toolkit around are very complex concept, AI, gender, privacy. And then we asked this question about, gender-related privacy issues, risk, concerns, and so on. Then there are siloed views and understandings of these different concepts, of course. Sometimes we get asked the question, why is this relevant? Why is it important? Why talk about gender in this context of designing AI or privacy? So that, led to changes in the kinds of approaches that we wanted to use originally. We said we wanted to build a toolkit. We had a way, workshops and so on that we had structured. But we then changed, by developing an AI lifecycle template from the different templates that are available. We introduced storytelling at the sessions that we had with our co-creators, and we decided that it was better to explore these concepts differently. So we explored privacy at a different workshop, gender at a different workshop, and we simplified the question. So it's no longer this long-winding privacy, gender-related privacy concerns, risk, and so on. So this is the AI life cycle that we put together. We think that makes it, simpler to follow actually what we are trying to do for all the stakeholders to see the different stages that we think designers and developers go through. And the idea is that we can ask these more simplified questions. At what stage in the development process does gender bias creep into the life cycle? And secondly, where in the life cycle should women's, girls' privacy be considered? So we think this is a good approach, both for those who have that background of design and development of AI. This is something relatable, something that they are aware of. And for those who are in policy, education, and so on, we think that is simplified enough for them to be able to relate with, what we are trying to do. And we have tried that in one workshop. We saw how, it worked really well in terms of simplifying the process. So the lessons that we have learned so far is how to use storytelling, or how powerful storytelling is as a tool. And in fact, in our toolkit, we decided that we are going to do what we call a storied introduction. So we have the toolkit in 3 parts, and the first part is going to be this storied introduction, where we're going to have a few stories about experiences of women, or how AI systems introduce, perpetrate, amplify, and so on when it comes to discrimination or bias against women. And then we saw the importance of peer-to-peer learning. So far, much of the workshop has been done in groups, And the groups have been able to relate, despite the fact that they are from different backgrounds. Those in the AI communities have been able to relate with the others in education policy and so on. So I think that's where we are on our project. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kemi. Privacy issues are really key, and I think you also nailed it in the education sector, this concern around surveillance and monitoring by so much data being available for the students. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question, Kemi, if you may, if you don't mind to stop sharing your screen.
Should I stop sharing? Okay.
Yes, and if you don't mind also coming back on.
I'm so sorry, I'm turning on and off, but the heat is unbearable for me, actually.
Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
so,
Sorry about that. I'll send you some.
Yeah, so I have to use the hand fan also.
I wanted to ask, Kemi, if you have any specific examples that you can share that have emerged from that first workshop around answering that question. At what stage in the development process does gender bias creep in? Did anything that surprised you emerge in that from trying to answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, I would not say some of it.
I think we've lost you, Kemi. Unfortunately. Perhaps we can move on to our last but not least panelist. And then when Adekemi's network is better, we may ask her to continue. I would like to invite you, Wambui. Thank you for putting the camera on. Wambui from Villgro, Africa, to share your innovation challenge experience. Please go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I did mention, about the electricity. So, they didn't agree with the life cycle that it should start that way. For example, they were telling us we need a problem identification at the first stage, and that is important to establish when you want to build an application, which gender is actually bearing the burden of the problem that you are trying to solve. With data collection, they were talking about, the problem of cultural practices and how that might limit data sharing, data collection, ability to give consent, and how it might be important to create safe spaces for, what they would call primary data collection. And I think issues, there are quite a mention of intersectionality, even if it wasn't mentioned exactly in that way. So there was mention of age, religion in considering, all these different life, the stages in the AI life cycle development. So do you want to think about the age of the girl, women, and so on? So these, I would say, are, really significant, important points that came across during the workshop.
Thank you. Thank you, Kemi. Very, very interesting. I'm also, now that you spoke about consent, very curious to see if anything will emerge around collective consent. Looking forward to seeing what emerges as a toolkit. Thank you so much. We had already invited Wambui Gachiengo. Please go ahead, Wambui.
Thank you very much. Try get this into slide mode. And thank you for having me. I've been listening to my fellow panelists and really blown away by the amazing work that is being done. I'll say that I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Villgro Africa, and Villgro Africa is an incubator and impact investor. So what we're trying to do is to commercialize enterprises, innovations in healthcare on the African continent. And also we happen to be supporting AI for health. So, we look across the investment landscape and we see that there is a very big difference between the funding that goes to women compared to men. So the funding going to men is in the billions, the funding going to women is in the millions. And I'm not going to say much about that, but what we wanted to do is look at the problem from Villgro's perspective. And one of the problems that we did see is that in a very specific call, a Pan-African call for AI, out of 112 applications, we only received 27 from women that are working in AI for health. And that did not seem like a good percentage. And we have seen that trend as well in non-AI calls for funding and incubation. And so we felt we needed to dig deeper into how we could look internally at ourselves at Villgro and see how we can either encourage more applications from women and also how we can better support them, either through the application process or the selection process, so that we could even out that imbalance. So we went into an exploration that included, reviewing our historical work, exploring our internal practices, and talking to women entrepreneurs about their needs. So I've heard a lot about co-creation and user-led, and we thought that that was the right way to go to talk to our customers, our users, and find out what their actual needs were so that they could commercialize their innovations. I'm not going to talk about this at all, but it really was just that we sent out a survey to find out what the issues were. We did a lot of internal data analysis for our past calls, and we found that there were challenges that stood out and some recommendations. So one was about the lack of guidance on applications. So we put out a call for applications and people have to go in. First of all, they have to figure out where the application is and then understand exactly what it is they're applying to. Now, this works both for men, or doesn't work both for men and women. But if you're already in a place where you have fewer of the women-led enterprises, we don't want to have even fewer of them because of the application complexity. And that led to not only were we not guiding them, but the questions were too complex. So they really did need the guidance because our questions that we were asking them were not user-friendly. There was no checklist of application materials, so they could get halfway or 3/4 of the way through the application and find that they needed other materials, and it got frustrating and they would give up. Technical issues or glitches, we were not sure if there was a recommendation there that would really work because that's out of our control. But finally, it was that the application period was short and people really didn't have adequate time for the very complex application process that we were asking them to go through. So we followed that up with a roundtable discussion, and we had a couple of women from the AI world who we sat with and we said, you know, what are some of the things we can do? And some of the questions we asked were about channels that we can use to disseminate our calls so that they could go out to the women that we were trying to reach. We also asked how we could engage, how we could support people who are working on AI for healthcare, and what kind of follow-up support would be needed by applicants, you know, not just when they were applying, but after they had applied for support from Villgro Africa. So this actually is where I think all the interesting stuff is, because, you know, there are things that we've already done. So everything outside of the green box really seems like a no-brainer. And we went ahead and we simplified the application process. We are working on inclusivity in the design of the application materials, whether that's the posters that go out, you know, the wording that we are using when we are talking about opportunities. We are increasing female representation in our internal processes, so in planning, structuring, and also in our internal investment committees. These are things that have been talked about a lot in the literature about why women are at a disadvantage. And it was interesting to see that we were perpetuating some of the same issues that are fairly well known, but are maybe not being taken care of. In the green box is where we are thinking about some things to go even further than the internal things that we have done. You know, in talking to our colleagues in AI, we got some pointers about some places we can go and talk about this gender inclusivity work that we're doing, to maybe shine a light on how we can work together with the AI community to help or to figure out how to get more women-led innovations commercialized. So those are places like research webinars at Makerere and Nelson Mandela universities. We are also going to gather information and tell some stories about a dozen or so women who are doing work in AI for healthcare, because that is something that we really want to grow. And then we want to engage either those women or other women who are working on AI in healthcare at a conference. And we are thinking about a data science conference in Kenya in June, mostly because it is local to where we are. And working to think about how we can create a community of practice for women in AI, not necessarily for healthcare, but how can we either work with something like, you know, Indaba that are already existent, to really have seminars and webinars on how we can support women specifically in commercializing their AI innovations. And I will stop there and happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Wambui, for sharing that and sharing that the new things that have emerged for you in how you could do this differently. I have one follow-up question for you, which is regarding the focus on not necessarily on changing the women, but it does look like you have identified that there is something that needs to support women in particular. And I was just wondering if there's anything that you are doing to change the system where those women operate. Sometimes I feel like we may look at women as the problem and not look at the system as the problem, or look at those two as the problem, but in siloed ways. So just wondering if in the processes and the approaches you are using, there's anything that you're also addressing change in the system, in gender relations, in power relations, or anything like that.
That's at the same time complex question and a very important question. And yes, we have internally sort of struggled with that question. Sort of, are we, when you think about venture capital and investments and things like that, these are structures that I believe were put together, I hope nobody will be offended, but by men for men. And they work in ways that don't necessarily support the way that women think and behave. And so a lot of the time, the way that people think about going into investment is women need to behave a little bit more like men so that they can go through the process. So we want to change the women, and I completely agree with you. What we have done here is we are saying, no, the problem is not the women. They're there and they're doing their work, but they work in slightly different ways, maybe very different ways. How can we change so that we can embrace that as being okay, and we can start supporting them in the places that they're working, whether that's in universities, where they're trying to build projects and products for the greater good, for global good, and how can we then work with them to maybe commercialize those things or figure out how to make them more sustainable. So we are really looking internally and turning the question around to not how can we make these women better, where better would mean let's change them, but how can we do things differently so that we can meet them where they are and they can tell us how we can support them better.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that full answer. We have finished the presentations by the rich presentations by our panelists. Unfortunately, it's already, we're running out of time. We would have loved to have a discussion with you, and there are some questions that have been asked in the chat. I noticed some of you have been answering already, but we won't have enough time to engage in a conversation as such. I was just wondering if we could end, if we could steal 2 or 3 minutes from our planned time. If we could end, if the panelists could switch their cameras back on, and then if we can end with a sentence or two from the lessons that have emerged so far. What would you like to learn a little bit more when talking about doing gender responsive AI research? If you could share just a sentence or two about what you would like to learn more or research a little bit more as you try to innovate in your work. Winston, would you like to go first?
No, that's okay. Thank you so much, Anita. Personally, I'm intrigued by this disconnect between the sense of business and the sense of ethics in AI, and I know that it's a world that we have to pull down, and I'm particularly interested in studies around where the nexus is between ethics and AI, and there's light evidence that it's actually possible to utilize to exploit ethics of AI at the same time in making your profit margin much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Winston. Anybody else would like to share a word or two?
Please,
Wambui.
can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Eunice, we can hear you. Could you wait a second and we let Wambui speak?
Yes, thank you, Kanisa. So I really would like to go further with the work that we've done to really see how, by using different outreach and support and changing the way that we engage with who are probably 50% of the innovators out there, maybe even more, could we change that balance? Could we somehow figure out how to flip that equation so that we have the amazing women who are working on innovations actually either commercializing or somehow making those more sustainable?
Thank you so much. Eunice, please go ahead.
Yes, please. I realize that
we cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Please, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Please. Yes, please. We realized that there was no sustainability plan for the ministry. That's why their app failed. And we are looking forward to how best we'll be able to have a sustainability plan, and like the and the what do you call it? User what do you call it? The ethical use of the app by the users. As we do the brains packages plan, and I believe that most of the developers may equally have the same issue of sustainability of their innovation beyond the lifespan of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Eunice. Thank you. Daisy, would you like to go?
Yes, that's fine. We are looking at a user-led inclusive design approach, which is simply a dialogue. You're having this dialogue with just some representation of the population. It would be interesting how it plays out now when you start to scaling up, because not everybody was really sitting in this interaction where you are sharing the needs and what the AI tool should look like. To me, it would be very interesting at the scale up, what would really happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kemi, would you like to share a few words?
Okay, thanks very much. So at the risk of sounding maybe theoretical, I think that what I would like to see or do more of is really how to simplify, explanations, understanding around the technology, AI itself, and its application to the society. Because today we are dealing with education. Maybe sometimes, the issues can be fairly they can be fairly clear sometimes, and as our research, our work has shown, sometimes that's not even the case. So if, I would like to think of indigenous methodologies that you can use to connect, the stakeholders around this technology, so that we can have, better conversations and understandings around gender, privacy, and associated risk of issues. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing that. As you can see, there's so many more lines to keep investigating and learning about how to do gender and inclusive responsive AI. I would like to thank our participants as well for accompanying us. Many have had to leave already. Thank our colleagues from Women at the Table, Gendered Work, and Lady Smith. And let you know that the recording of this conversation will be soon available at the AI4D website. So it will be possible to share with the colleagues that were not here and you think they might benefit from what other teams beside yours had to share. So thank you so much. For those who celebrate Easter, happy Easter. For those who are on Ramadan, happy Ramadan. And for those who might just take a break, enjoy. Thank you so much.